The Ancient History PSYOP with Carrion Eater Max Igan, the crow himself of the Crow House website. I confess, I listened to many Max walk and talks in the past. Then I met him in his Mexican bar a few years ago, and my idol became a decrepit and unfriendly man. Today I'll do a long overdue stripping of Max Egan, the Max Egan. Nice name. Was his move to Mexico planned long ago? And was his name coded with that plan? What about his logos or trademarks and his opening visuals? Why put us in a complicated machine full of cogs every time we play one of his podcasts? Maybe not every time. Is it intended to inspire us? The perspective is odd. We seem to be inside the machine. What does it mean? It doesn't bode well for us, does it? Well, let's have a look at his opening visuals. Um, they are most disturbing, I think. There you go. Enter the machine. And behold, the disturbing face coming towards us, the Crow House face. And here we have it. Come down. Oh, yeah, yeah. There we go. Surviving the Matrix, the Crow House. This fellow here. Both eyes open at present. And, well, it's flower speckled. We'll get a better image later. Sometimes one eye is open and one eye closed. Oh dear, that does not bode well for us, does it? What does it mean? Nothing good. This machine face is overgrown also with flowers. Favorite symbol of the Rosicrucians. Similarly, the green man found in European churches is a head covered with leaves. Leaves he will be cooked with. Why is Max's website called the Crow House? Crows bring carrion, dead meat, to their houses. Are his fans carrion? Are we dead meat? Is that the joke?
The only tyrant I will accept in this world is the still small voice within me.
The still small. It's not still enough, my dear Mahatma Gandhi. Um, what a life he had. A dozen arrests. Who survives a dozen arrests without being beaten to an inch of his life? Comes out. It's a drama-filled life. It's theater for the masses. This man, educated in Britain, claims to be the enemy of the Britons, even practiced law in Britain. And you would trust such a man who was invited, had access to the home of the Prime Minister of Britain. And Max quotes Gandhi. Well, we know what page he's on. Here's our graphic here with one eye closed, as I said. Um, well, this is this is the intro to his podcast made 7 years ago titled, Why Are They Hiding History? Let's play a little more.
It's Igan, and I will be your host for the next hour. And I don't really have anything planned at all for today's show, folks. I've been so busy. I've got to prepare for AB9 and all sorts of stuff. But I thought,
What a liar. How did he produce this with all its visuals and clips from other people's videos, nicely arranged? Does he have someone helping him? Someone he never credits? Well, maybe I missed those credits.
get a show out to you anyway. And I thought that just to give myself a break and perhaps
The
give you
little woo-woo visuals, ooh, hypnotic, isn't it? So much like his voice, too. Very nice voice, a calming voice, especially in this podcast. Makes me wonder about his name. If I may share another part, another tab. Oops, I screwed up again. Stuff is just too complicated for me. There we go. Spell his last name backwards. You have Nagi, a Japanese term primarily meaning calm, lull, or stillness. Seems rather too appropriate to be accidental. Hmm. As is, the full sound of his name, the first and last name together sounds like Mexican. Interesting. What mysteries don't we know about this man? Well, let's go back.
you a break as well and to do something completely different to the norm. I might just perhaps revisit some of my original influences and look at some of the things that originally got me started on this path and just ponder a few questions that I think it's important to ask. Questions about how we got here.
How we got here. I mean, that's if there is an intelligent question behind that, he didn't articulate it very well. How we got here. Well, he doesn't answer the question either. If you follow Max, what he has to say about the past is that we can't know anything about it. It's all speculation. So I guess the question doesn't really interest him. Personally, I like to say I got here via my mother, whoever she might be. She's not listening, so I can joke. And that's enough. I don't much care how we got here, but I would like to get out, which is not something that interests the crows in this giant crow house, which he calls a human farm later in his podcast. I'll address that later. Let's play a little more. Um, no, let's not. At 25, let's skip ahead and have a look at one of his amazing visuals. There we go.
Just the distrust and the divide and conquer and the insults and all the stuff that
Ooh,
goes with it. I mean, you can research
the
whatever you want, but you
triangle,
don't have to insult others while you do
the
it.
upside down
But even
triangle,
looking at it, you can't blame
fibro.
the flat earthers for what
Oh, and the eye. Again, the eye inside a pentagon. How meaningful and mysterious. What is he saying? Do we really need hypnotic visuals? Isn't his voice enough? And the content, too, is hypnotic. When he's not qualifying or contradicting himself endlessly, he's repeating his main points, as happens during the better half of this podcast by him. Why are they hiding history? These features, these hypnotic features, are designed to prevent us from thinking. But sadly, very sadly, those features failed today. Let's let him speak about technology. Something, well, obviously important to him. It's in his opening visuals.
It's really quite miraculous. It really is. Even when you look at what we've done in the last 30 or 40 years, technology has simply snowballed. Some of the
Technology is miraculous. He seems to speak very highly of it, although he will also say that it is part of the prison system we live in. Contradiction? Mm.
technology we're using now is stuff that was never dreamt of when I was a child. It was all science fiction when I was a child. This was stuff out of Flash Gordon and bizarre comic books. But even Flash Gordon and some of the bizarre comic books didn't have the stuff that we've got now. It's really big come out of nowhere and it's snowballed to such an extreme. So you really have to wonder where it all comes from.
It really came from nowhere, he said. And a few words later, you really have to wonder where it came from. No, we don't have to wonder where it came from. It's really not that important. Ultimately, we won't need it. Not in the better world, the paradise we should and could and must and will create. I don't think we need it. It's not only present day technology that apparently impresses Max, but it's also the secret technologies of the past that were used to cut those stupid megalithic blocks. Are we done? When will we be done with blocks? Leave the blocks to the blockheads. That's what I say to all the people so concerned about, so interested in megaliths, people who will pay to look at pyramids and blocks in Peru, blocks in Baalbek. Let's go ahead. Let him speak once more. A few minutes later, he speaks again about technology.
Look at the growth of technology in the last 100 years. It really is quite amazing that we've managed to achieve what we've achieved, which again begs the question, where did it all come from?
Mm. Where, oh, where? Not from my behind. Only good things came
You
from
remember the
there.
last film that I put out in 2012 called Transformation? I asked the question in that film, who was it who first pulled a rock from the ground and decided to beat it into metals? Yeah, how did they even know what metals were? And even then, how did they know about metallurgy? How did they know how to develop any of these things? And why would they need metals to begin with? And you might think, well, we needed metals because it was just a natural development for weapons or plowshares or whatever. But think about it. If you were living in a hunter-gathering society, which is what society would have been, for living in our natural state, I mean, that's what you'd be doing. You'd be living a society kind of like the American Indians, and even they had stone arrowheads and things like that. So why would you need metals? I mean, why would you even have the time to look for metals or create metals? What would you need them for?
All very interesting questions, and he doesn't answer them. It's just a mystery. Um, I'm tired of his mysteries. Technology was necessary for tribes that moved north into cold climates where huts don't suffice, where food must be preserved or hunted during the winters. To feed a carnivorous village in the winter, you need a good slaughterhouse and smokehouse and a large kitchen for processing animals. A wooden barn is not good enough. You need a large stone building that can hold heat, a building with stone floors that can be cleaned, and it should not be smaller than a small church. Hint, hint. Um, People who know my work will know what I'm hinting at. Well, my point is that if you want to be more than a small tribe, uh, hunting tribe, hunting dependent tribe, and if you don't want to be nomadic, you will certainly need technology, the technology to build stone, large stone buildings and find ways to cut stone and make cement, all those things. Well, back to 415, 450, where we missed something about conspiracy theories.
Everything look like a conspiracy and to get everybody questioning anything. And when you do find a real truth, or if a real truth does get exposed, to embellish it to the point that it becomes unbelievable. So it just becomes another conspiracy theory with all the other conspiracy theories. And if you get a few people penning these ideas and putting them out there, or here's this ancient document to be found, and here's this ancient book that was printed and says all this stuff, and you really don't know. All you know is that what people have said it is. They've said what that document is. They've said when that book was printed, but we don't really know. It could have just been put out there with a date on it. We just don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. We don't know when these ancient texts were actually written. Well, I have good evidence that they were written much more recently than our historians would have us believe. But from another perspective, it really doesn't matter who wrote them or when they were written. As I've made clear in my podcast on Shakespeare, which is based on a chapter in my book, Lucifer's Library, it doesn't matter who wrote Shakespeare's plays and poetry. Doesn't matter when they were written, really. What's most important is that these texts, ancient texts, Shakespearean texts, etc., are full of toxic garbage, childish nonsense, dynastic soap operas and such. And some were carefully encrypted with thematic patterns and subtexts that reveal enough depravity and insanity to cure us of our fascination with ancient texts. That is what I reveal in 3 of my 6 books. And you would be a brave man or woman if you dared to read any of them. Um, Besides that, we may take note of my personal experience reading many, many ancient texts and concluding that they have no wisdom to share. Not unless you like fantasies and superstition. We also have buildings, especially holy buildings, places of worship, whose features reveal a great deal if you interpret them correctly, as I showed and will show in some of my podcasts, all of which are based on my books. They reveal enough to cure us of our fascination with the past. Let's go ahead to Egypt. Max still loves Egypt, or wants us to. Here we go. Lovely relief sculpture or relief carving that appears to have been cast actually from some special concrete recipe. Um, yes, he doesn't speak about it, but it's there to tantalize us with, conspiracy theories about ancient Egyptians having, look, that looks like does that look like a helicopter? Some kind of boat, maybe? A spaceship? Stuff like this should really make us decide that, hey, no, 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 this didn't come from the past. This is forged on purpose so that we get lost in speculations And only people who already had flying technologies of some sort, maybe were already designing helicopters, only such people could have made such relief sculptures, relief carvings, castings, really. And such people could not have existed thousands of years ago. I suspect this was cast not more than 200 years ago, maybe less, during that time when all those fake dinosaur bones were found, when all those fake giant bones, giant human bones were found, when evolution theory was substantiated by a few bones. Yeah, the 1800s, generally the 1800s, when white Europeans discovered just about everything that humanity had somehow missed for thousands of years. Let's discuss, well, Max wants to cry a little bit about people destroying Middle Eastern ancient monuments. One moment. Oops.
Cradle of civilization. And they're just destroying history all over the Middle East. They're destroying all the ancient artifacts they can, all the ancient cities they can, all the ancient structures that they can, because the stuff that's there in the Middle East that they're bombing in Syria, places like Aleppo and Palmyra, these are far older than the places that you find in Europe.
Well, big statements. Um, so they want to destroy the ancient heritage of the Middle East, the so-called cradle of civilization, because it's proof that mm, the Middle East is older than Europe. People already believe that. Middle Eastern civilization is older than European civilization. Well, if that's what they tell us, it's probably not true, right? Um, 7 years ago, I guess ISIS was busy destroying some things, maybe the American military. But, the question is, one question that should occur to Max is why weren't these things destroyed much earlier by the West and its proxies like ISIS? They could have been destroyed long ago. The West has been in the Middle East long enough, at least in modern times, since World War One. Uh, and if you believe in the Crusades, well, then we could have destroyed it 1,000 years ago. But we didn't. But we are apparently doing it in the 21st century. Why? Does evidence exist in the Middle East that human history is shorter than the conventional timeline? I don't think there's anything special there that uh, more special than anything we can find elsewhere. In fact, regarding his statement that the Middle East is much older than Europe, well, I must disagree. There's no proof of that. It'd be hard to prove. You can't carbon date stones. And if we look at old amphitheaters in Germany, well, they might be dated to the Middle Ages, but they look as old as any monuments on Earth. And their primitive nature suggests that they are older than the more sophisticated monuments found in the Middle East. So, yeah, but it's not really important to know everything about history. And I think one of the effects of my videos and books is that you will quickly be cured of your interest in the past because I'm exposing the ugly truth. and explaining that we should, hey, let's focus on the future. Those two messages combined should suffice. But let's have some fun with the past and have some fun exposing Max, as I like to do. I like to expose, I like to strip. He wants to speak about Arabs. No, he wants to speak about the Library of Alexandria, that most famous of all libraries, which was also reputedly destroyed, not by ISIS.
Destroyed so much stuff. I mean, the burning of the Alexandrian Library, for example, which was burnt by one or two, possibly even three groups of people, burnt by the Christians, burnt by the Arabs, burnt by anybody who wanted to burn it. The scroll
Mhm. He forgot to mention Julius Caesar, whose navy reputedly burned the Library of Alexandria by accident. Imagine that. It happened after they intentionally set their own ships on fire in order to prevent the Carthaginians, I think, from attacking them. Is that plausible? Is that a navy strategy? Set your own ships on fire while you are trying to conquer, while you are moored to the shore of your enemy, uh, presumably in their harbor. No, that doesn't make much sense. Um, well, Max has another interesting statement that based on some ancient texts.
scrolls in the Alexandrian Library powered the baths. They heated the baths in the
The scrolls of the Alexandrian Bible were carefully removed, collected, shipped to the baths, wherever they were, where they became fuel for heating the baths. These are the stories we find in our ancient texts. The silliness of it all. Can uncompacted paper produce as much sustained heat as firewood? No. While paper is derived from wood and burns very hot, it lacks density, which means it burns too quickly, inefficiently, and produces significantly less heat over time compared to an equal volume of firewood. Well, you just can't squeeze enough paper into an oven to produce the required heat. Um, so that was another fairy tale about heating the baths with the scrolls found in the Alexandrian library, which never existed. And if it did, so what? Libraries are built by those who rule the world. It's the libraries and books represent the beginning of the media, the mind-controlling media. Books were the first vehicles, tools with which communication was centralized for the benefit of the ruling class. Okay, let's go ahead to China. Max wanted to speak about China. And who am I to deny him?
for them because they decided they would to destroy. You know where that came from? Because many Chinese emperors took it upon themselves to destroy all the history books that existed before them because they decided they would be the beginning of history and history should start with them. And
That's quite egotistical. Is it possible? Would emperors do that to the works of past dynasties? I'm a little skeptical. Um, the theory is almost plausible, but the reality is that no ancient Chinese civilizations existed. That should be obvious from my podcast on the Great Walls of China, which is based on a small part of my book, the Encyclopedia Comedia. My apologies to all the proud Chinese. They are proud of the illusion that They have a long history. 1217. Let's hear Max speak about the Mayans.
Before they were born, before they took rulership. So the history would start there. And I think a couple of emperors actually did that in China. So it's pointless looking there for any information. We may have got something from the Mayans, but the Spanish did a great job of destroying all of their information. We do have one or two codexes left, but people simply can't translate them properly.
Uh, the Mayan civilization, my apologies to my fellow Mexicans, is another illusion. It was not destroyed by Spaniards. It was invented by Spaniards, on the contrary. Mayan civilization is another illusion. The Maya are Maya. Maya is a Sanskrit word that means illusion. Yes, you have to be multilingual, a polyglot, in order to understand all the jokes written by our masters, the creators of world cultures. And well, let's move on to Mesopotamia. This is a tour of the whole world.
Europe. We've got Baalbek in Lebanon, an absolutely incredible site and very mysterious. They tell us, of course, it was built by the Romans and later had a temple built on top by the Arabs, but there's no evidence to support this claim. There's actually foundations there that are incredibly old. And
Incredibly old, because you can carbon date stone. You sure can. Um, as for the Roman Empire, I know Max rejected the claim that they built Baalbek, um, but he doesn't go far enough. He should also reject the claim that Roman Empire existed, ever existed. It is another fiction, as I showed in lectures based on my book, Counterfeit Classics. The only empire that ever existed on this planet, is the empire of the carnivore and cannibal cult. Just one of the many names I gave them. At the 16-minute mark of this video podcast, Max mentions one of his favorite topics, the mud flood theory. I suspect there were mud floods. It's hard to disagree with the evidence. Um, I suspect it was used, mud floods were used to hide the subterranean human farms that existed under many old world cities. And the mud floods happened not more than 200 years ago. Um, Not less than 115 approximately years ago. I discussed the subterranean human farm evidence in other lectures based mostly on my book, The Criminal Bible. Let's skip ahead to 16, where we get to learn about Noah's flood. Somehow Max believes the Bible because, well, he has a reason.
if that mud flood happened as recently as 500 years ago, then you've got to question, when did the Great Flood happen? The flood that everybody talks about, the flood of Noah. And
Flood of Noah. Do you get the little hmm, pseudo pun, crypto pun, the flood of Noah? No flood of no one. Very funny.
this flood did happen because it exists in all cultures. It's in all mythologies from all cultures. I mean, even the American Indians talk about the Great Flood.
They don't talk about it, but it's in their folklore, it's in their myths. I'm not sure all peoples talk about it, have such myths. But if they do, so what? It proves nothing. Um, it only proves that Max can't imagine that the people who had the technology to lift 30-ton blocks of stone also had the technology to fly around the world and plant their bullshit stories everywhere. They are the world culture creators until we start creating our own cultures. Get off, learn to think, and stop being so dependent and trusting. Let's hear Max speak about, well, hiding history again.
Years old, or possibly even less. And if this is the case, well, again, the question is why? What's the point of hiding history? What purpose does it serve, really? And these may seem like esoteric ramblings. I mean, you might ask the question, what's the point? Who cares what history is? We're here now. Let's just do the best with what we've got. And that's all very well. But
No, it's not all very well, of course not. But what's the point of hiding history? Well, he doesn't really answer that question. I think I do a better job. They have much to hide. Human farms and cannibalism is rather serious crimes. So yes, they have much to hide, and I know why they try to erase that history and give us fake history. Um, but don't wait for Max to read, listen, or recognize my work, or even to address it. Um, a related question is, why did they, the world culture creators, create a hugely elongated history of the world, and why did they stuff it full of mysteries? And the answer is to better waste our time and keep us obsessed with mysteries while we are being farmed above ground by governments and bankers. Well, Max will discuss that in a moment, and I'll have to address his addressing of that topic. Let's skip ahead again to, well, Max again, repeating one of his favorite ideas, anti anti intellectual ideas, and somewhat. Here we go.
really step back and look at all this, and you realize that this is how it's been done. And this hiding of history has been an integral part of creating this conspiracy culture in order to hide the real conspiracy that you're living in a people farm. Whatever form it takes, we don't know, but you're living in a people farm that is managed via a system of debt slavery, whereby all the inhabitants are forced to strip mine the earth around them in order to collect the paper they need to pay to be alive.
Yeah, he's making some good sense here. I won't play it all, but he does say, however, that we don't know the truth and we won't know it until we are free. It's another one of his concepts. Um, Apparently, when we are free, we will be free to explore the Vatican archives, which he seems to imagine contains the truth about our past. It is a vast underground complex, the Vatican archives. It was once a subterranean human farm, I strongly suspect. Now it's stuffed with all the things that they had to hide um, when they did a reset, repurposed all their kitchens, turned them into turned them into churches and let us live in their cities. Well, anyway, those archives will greatly disappoint us. But at best, they will reveal what I already revealed. As for the money problem, yeah, it's quite serious, of course. Fiat money, fractional reserve banking, usury, and other um, tricks of the trade do, feed the ruling class, do keep us poor and busy working, too busy to think, too busy to enjoy life, which seems to be important for them. Um, Max understands that the money problem is bigger than that. I mean, even if we make money fair, at least the banking system fair, we still have the problem that we have to pay for everything. Um, well, I don't mind paying for things if the transaction is fair. I don't mind paying for my life if the transaction is fair. No. And if I'm giving my money to people who use my money well. The problem is we're constantly dependent. Money makes us dependent on others. That's the whole purpose of money is to support an economy in which everyone is specialized and unable to provide for themselves everything they need. So we depend on other specialists, someone to feed us, someone to build our house, and so on. And this is a recipe for greed, fraud, monopolies, and a tabletop monopoly world. Um, at 3350, Max is going to say some very silly things. Very, very silly things. Let's give him a chance to um, entertain us.
With that religious mindset that a lot of people get into. I mean, I think it's all very well to have faith and to believe in your God or your Savior or whatever you want to believe in.
No, Max, it is not okay to believe in whatever you want to believe in. Um, to believe in something you cannot confirm with your senses and something, God, namely, and heaven, these things that prevent us from facing our fear of being mortals, our fear of living an unhappy life, and our fear of not being able to do anything about it. This has consequences. Such beliefs encourage us to do nothing, to wait until heaven, our reward, to leave this world in a mess. And these beliefs keep us intellectually weak, too weak to face our mortality, uh, which is something that we should face. It will make us stronger. And such beliefs make us blind to our greatest problems because, hey, God will take care of it. Everything will be fine in heaven if we just go along and let our problems continue unabated. Let our enemies continue profiting from us and laughing at us. Like Jesus, who did nothing to address the ruling class problem. Similarly, I mean, to put a more modern twist on this idea that any belief is fine, and believe whatever you want. Belief in contagious viruses, that too is not okay. People who believe in them are liable to believe that I threaten their lives unless I do what they say. They are dangerous people. Similarly, religious people who believe that you're only a good person if you believe in God, and everyone else who doesn't believe in God, sorry, is necessarily of the devil and a threat to life on earth and to people's chances at going to heaven. Well, obviously, such people are also dangerous. Thankfully, we don't have so many religious fanatics in the West, but we have virus fanatics instead. Yeah, and let's not forget the climate change fanatics. All these people are know nothing about nature. The animals don't have any care about viruses, do very well without vaccines and masks, and yet we wander around ignoring their example. and living in fear of nothing. And I go on. I will go on. No, I won't. Jesus was an activist. This is another entertaining claim made by Max Kaiser. Let's let him speak. Oops, I don't need that. Uh, Around hereabouts.
Well, when he got annoyed with things and he took matters into his hands when he needed to, and if you're going to follow his teachings, I would suggest that that's what he wanted you to do as well. And that's what he suggested that you could do. And unfortunately, people simply aren't doing it. They're waiting for him to come back and do it for them, which
Well, yeah, that is part of the message of Christianity.
went and overturned the tables of the money changers and he whipped the bankers out of the temple. I mean, he got annoyed with things and he took
Took matters into his own hands.
time. I mean, even if you want to believe in Christ, I mean, Jesus Christ was an activist.
Jesus Christ was an activist. Yeah. He got annoyed. He took matters into his own hands, kicked out the bankers from the temple. This is such bullshit. Really, walking around performing miracles is not activism. It's lazy dreaming. And kicking the bankers out of the temple only forced them to conduct their business in banks. Nothing accomplished. Nada. Lastly, I wish to make a general response to Max's general message. At one point, he mentioned that the flat earth theory is divisive, and he repeated that all theories about ancient history are both speculative and divisive. Therefore, Max wants us to stop arguing about such things and focus on overthrowing the criminal elites who force us to pay them to live. That's nice advice, isn't it? So radical. Revolution. Yay. Why? Why revolution? So we can revolve, go in circles. No one has a plan for a new world, for a new culture. This world is thoroughly the creation of criminals and thoroughly controlled by them and by their billions of volunteers. So, A, revolution is impossible, and B, if revolution means overthrowing the criminals and preserving all the nice, mind-numbing things they gave us, well, then we would still be living in a stupid, criminal world. That's the problem with the idea that we just need better leaders. We actually need a new world, a new culture from the ground up, start from scratch. None of this, what do we call it? Little fixes, budget adjustments, changes in ideology. No, we need an entirely new culture. And it ain't communitarianism. It ain't communism with a new face. Who is qualified to create a better future? Max, is he working to create the blueprint for our future? Or is he busy massaging our brains, putting us to sleep by crowing and cawing about the lost past, secret technologies, genocides, and the phone-totting Palestinians we've never met who dress better than I do? Interpret that as you wish. Whose population continues to grow miraculously and who seem quite healthy despite supposedly living in hell for the past 80 years. I believe the time has come to shoo Max the Crow away, or to leave his crow house, his table of carrion, and find better birds and create a better world.